Today, we are delving into a story that showcases the complexities of past friendships and the challenge of navigating social boundaries. It revolves around an unexpected email that arrives from a former university acquaintance, Marcus Thorne, reaching out to the protagonist, Elena Rossi, after 4 long years of silence. This initial contact sparks a roller coaster of emotions and reflections on their shared history, highlighting just how fragile human connections can be. Elena is jolted awake one typical Thursday morning as sunlight breaks through her curtains, casting a warm glow across her neatly organized home office. She feels a familiar dread creeping into her thoughts, whispering reminders of what lies ahead in the day. Just as she is about to lose herself in her work, a notification pops up on her screen, an email from Marcus Thorne. The sight of his name sends a flicker of unease through her. It has been too long since they last spoke, and Elena finds herself unsure whether the memories of their shared past are pleasant or bittersweet. Curiosity piqued, she clicks to open the email, and her heart sinks as she reads his uncharacteristically informal message. Marcus, once a close friend, is reaching out with an urgent request. He claims that a pipe has burst in their basement, rendering their home uninhabitable. He asks if he and his family, his wife Chloe and their 2 young children, can stay with her temporarily. The urgency of the plea is palpable through the screen, but it is tinged with a sense of familiarity that Elena cannot shake off. Though she understands the hardships life can toss their way, Elena's instincts immediately scream red flags. Marcus's request feels audacious. After all, they have not been in contact for years. During their university days, Elena had been supportive, especially after the death of Marcus's father, helping him prepare for crucial presentations when he needed a confidant. Yet that support had laid the groundwork for a friendship that seemed to diminish with time. As their friendship waned, Elena had come to terms with Marcus drifting away, reassured herself that people's lives naturally diverge as they settle down. However, she recalls overhearing Chloe, Marcus's wife, making dismissive comments about her lifestyle. Chloe had labeled Elena as a distraction, with phrases like unconventional lifestyle injecting doubt into her self-worth as a friend. These memories flood her mind, and instead of compassion, Elena feels a growing resolve that she has built a successful life on her own terms, free from the judgment of their social circle. With a heart heavy from conflicting feelings, Elena begins to draft a response. Hesitant and unsure, part of her wants to help. After all, they shared a bond once, but another part warns her to protect herself from this unexpected intrusion. The email stirs something deep within her. It sparks a mixture of indignation and reflection on their past. She is reminded of how Marcus had slowly excluded her from their group, seemingly in pursuit of a family-oriented life. In her mind, Elena weighs the memories against the urgency of the present request. Though empathy bubbles within her, she knows that her home is not just a place to shelter others. It is her sanctuary, a workspace built for her independent life. The thought of Marcus and his family encroaching upon her carefully carved-out space sends a shiver down her spine. As Elena gathers her thoughts to form a response, the memories flood back, pleasant ones intertwined with painful reminders of the apparent disregard Marcus had shown her in the past. She recalls her moments of vulnerability during a health scare she had kept private, experiences that were too raw to be shared with him or anyone else at the time. These quiet battles had galvanized her sense of independence, even as Marcus sought comfort from her during his own tumultuous times. After staring at the screen for what feels like an eternity, a resolve begins to crystallize within Elena. This situation is not merely about the logistics of housing, it is about setting boundaries, recognizing the complexities of human relationships, and controlling the narrative that exists within those connections. As she types her careful refusal, 2 thoughts dominate her mind: protection for her own well-being, and a subtle acknowledgement of the disconnect that has defined their relationship for years. This email stands to be the defining moment that reveals who they both have become since their paths diverged. Thus begins the journey of Elena Rossi, as she confronts not only Marcus's request, but the entire tapestry of their fractured friendship, ultimately questioning what it means to truly support and care for one another. Friendships can be fragile and complex. Over the years, they have the capacity to deepen and flourish, as well as to fray and dissolve. Such was the fate of the friendship between Elena Rossi and Marcus Thorne. 4 years prior to that unsolicited email, Elena and Marcus shared a bond that seemed unbreakable. They had navigated the trails of university life together, supporting each other through life's ups and downs. However, as life often does, it introduced challenges and distractions that began to create distance between them, slowly eroding their connection. Elena had always admired Marcus's determination. He possessed a fierce ambition, an untamed drive that propelled him toward his career goals. She distinctly remembered their late-night study sessions, filled with laughter and deep conversations about their dreams and aspirations. At that time, the world seemed to stretch infinitely ahead of them, and they believed they could conquer anything, but that was before Marcus found love and commitment. Before he married Chloe and stepped into the role of a dedicated family man, he was simply a friend tirelessly pursuing his dreams alongside Elena. As Marcus settled into married life, things began to shift. With every milestone, his burgeoning career, marriage, and eventual parenthood, Elena noticed a subtle but unmistakable shift in his priorities. Marcus had begun to distance himself from her, gradually phasing her out of their shared social circle. She had not quite understood it at first. Perhaps it was merely a manifestation of the natural divergence that occurs when friends embark on different life paths. However, the snags began to show, and it became challenging for her to overlook them. There had been a moment, a painful slice of time, when Chloe's voice pierced through the laughter of a gathering. Elena had overheard her dismissive comments about people who lived unconventional lifestyles, an implicit jab aimed squarely at her own life choices. "It must be hard for Marcus to focus on family with distractions like that around," Chloe had said. The judgment in her tone resonated, leaving Elena feeling as though she had been reduced to a mere distraction. Such remarks struck deeper than they may have realized. As Elena was grappling with her own challenges, a difficult career transition, and a recent health scare that had injected stress and uncertainty into her life, Elena had chosen to keep her struggles private, encapsulating them behind a facade of professionalism. She recognized that in that crucial stage of her career, her focus was paramount. Did Marcus understand her battles? Did he care? It was a gnawing thought that lingered in the back of her mind. The very essence of their friendship had once been rooted in mutual support, but slowly it transformed into a dilapidated structure, crumbling under the weight of judgment and disparity. He was forging a life filled with wife and children, stability, predictability, and family, but in doing so, he appeared to forget the importance of their past and the genuine bond they had shared. Yet beneath the resentment and pain, there lay a flicker of empathy. Elena had once been there for Marcus when he faced some of the darkest times of his life. The unexpected death of his father was a wound that had left him vulnerable and shaken. Elena had worked tirelessly with him, preparing him for a pivotal presentation just days after the funeral, when the weight of grief was still palpable in the air. Despite their divergent paths, there had been moments when their connection had felt genuine, but empathy only stretched so far. As time passed, the unease surrounding the evolution of their relationship began to suffocate. Elena, friends grew apart. She understood that, however, the silence, the complete lack of communication between them felt like a betrayal of the friendship they once cherished. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and soon years passed without a single word. She had hoped that he would reach out, that he would remember the bond they had created. Elena remembers standing in front of mirrors during those days. What happened to them? What did she do wrong? The reality was that people evolve. Marcus had found his happiness and purpose as a family man, leaving Elena with questions about her own life path. The disconnect felt disheartening. Did the growth of their individual lives truly warrant the death of their friendship? As these memories washed over her now, staring at the screen flooded with memories of a past once shared, she found herself conflicted. Her heart felt heavy, the canvas of their shared history, painted with moments of support, love, and laughter, now overshadowed by bitterness. The fateful email dropped like a stone into her reflective waters, rippling and distorting the images of what was. Elena took a deep breath, pushing the memories to the back of her mind, forcing herself to focus on the present and the unexpected email from Marcus that lingered in her inbox. But lingering doubts bubbled to the surface, a reminder of what was lost and perhaps what was never meant to be. As Elena stared at the screen, Marcus's email loomed before her like an unwelcome specter from the past. The urgency of his request was tangible, weighing heavily on her fingertips as she hovered over the keyboard. His words were informal, almost too casual for someone who had drifted from her life for so long. "It has been 4 years, and now you want a favor," she muttered under her breath, irritation curling her lips. A pipe had burst in their basement, he claimed, rendering their family home uninhabitable. Suddenly Marcus needed her. He needed her hospitality, her resources, her space. The email was meticulously crafted, yet the underlying tone suggested an air of entitlement. Elena felt a sharp pang in her chest as she read his description of the alleged property issue, complete with compelling details about his wife Chloe and their 2 young children. They were in dire straits, he professed, exhausted all their options, and somehow she was now their lifeline. The casualness of the request rubbed her the wrong way, stirring an instinctual defensive response within her. It was as if he believed their past camaraderie entitled him to her current life. Elena knew better than anyone how quickly connections could dissolve in the wake of life's demands. Their friendship had been cherished, a relationship marked by mutual trusted support, until it was not. She recalled Marcus's mounting distance, overshadowed by the heightened responsibilities he had embraced in the name of family. Did years of silence warrant this sudden, bold intrusion? Did he truly believe their history allowed him to invade her sanctuary? "Temporary housing? You want to stay in my home?" she whispered incredulously, a flurry of emotions threatening to overtake her composure. Memories of shared laughter and heartfelt conversations faded into hazy recollections of judgment and dismissal, a partition growing larger with each passing year. To seek refuge in her home, after all that had passed, felt not only presumptuous but deeply unfair. The world tightened around her. The implications of inviting Marcus and his family into her space felt like a suffocating weight. The email continued, with Marcus appealing to her past kindness. He invoked memories of their shared experiences, referencing a time when she had offered him a warm place to stay during a rough patch after college. Consciously, he was tugging at the threads of their past, attempting to weave a fabric of camaraderie that had largely unraveled. Did he think she would overlook the absence of his kindness over the years? The contrast was stark. Elena had always respected Marcus's journey, even when it led him away from her, while he now seemed to disregard hers altogether. Elena sat back in her chair, her heart racing as frustration swirled within her. She could not dismiss the emotions rising to the surface. Memories of her own struggles flooded back, remnants of the challenges she had faced during their drifting friendship. Unlocking her ambitions while managing her personal health issues required focus and intense dedication. Meanwhile, Marcus had become a family man, embracing responsibilities that appeared to eclipse all that came before it. Their friendship had been at a delicate balance, a once shared space now morphing into something foreign and detached. Questions began to cascade through her mind. Did he even recognize the climbing tension between them? Did he recall how much he had allowed the gap to widen during their years of silence? His sudden neediness felt almost like a betrayal, and the audacity of his email bristled against her principles of boundaries, respect, and friendship. Elena leaned forward, bringing her fingers to type a response. Yet that decisive movement felt heavier than a mere click on the keyboard. It felt like a critical judgment of her moral ground. Should she offer help, or should she stand firm against this blatant disregard for their shared history? The unwelcome appeal from Marcus bore deeper implications than simply being a temporary housing request. Elena felt the weight of unresolved emotions and unfinished conversations pull her in different directions. She was left grappling with her own history, a history that had once blossomed into something beautiful but had withered under the harsh sunlight of judgment and distance. As this weight settled, her heart began to make decisions beyond her consciousness. Would she allow her sanctuary, her meticulously curated space, meant for focus and creativity, to be compromised by someone who had chosen to forget her, yet now needed her presence as a lifeline? In that moment, a certainty began to take root. The layers of frustration and bitterness she had felt towards Marcus would not only keep her in turmoil, they would guide her towards a firm decision, perhaps even an empowering one. Taking a deep breath, she deliberately set aside her initial impulses and focused instead on the present reality, preparing to craft a response to someone she now understood was a stranger to her, despite the echoes of their past. As the days passed since Marcus reached out, Elena found herself in a spiral of contemplation. The email, with its urgency and presumption, sat like an unwanted reminder in her inbox, The request was not only a surprise but felt like a breach of trust, given their history. As she delved deeper into her feelings, she found her resolve hardening, yet just as she contemplated how to articulate her rejection, an unexpected twist in the narrative arrived courtesy of her resourceful cousin, Sophia. Sophia was a digital marketing specialist, yet her true gift lay in her relentless determination to unearth the truth. When Elena casually shared the details of Marcus's plea during a lunch outing, she could hardly predict the response that would trigger a small avalanche of revelations. It was in her nature to be investigative, always probing the surface for hidden truths, and thus, without prompting, she took it upon herself to dig deeper into Marcus and Chloe's situation, driven by a sense of loyalty to her cousin. The moment Sophia revealed her findings, Elena felt a rush of conflicting emotions. On one hand, it was a relief to learn more. On the other, it was alarming to discover the layers of deceit woven into the fabric of Marcus's request. His claim of an emergency, a burst pipe forcing his family into a frenzy, was in fact a calculated misrepresentation. With each detail Sophia uncovered, stress turned to disbelief and disbelief to simmering anger. Through a series of discreet inquiries and a standard check of public records, Sophia pieced together the timeline. Months prior, Marcus and Chloe had sold their suburban home. They had done so with impressive aspirations of finding a larger property closer to the heart of the vibrant city where Elena lived, but the reality had been far less glamorous. They are currently house hopping, Sophia disclosed, staying with relatives and in short-term rentals while they look for something they deem acceptable. They are in an Airbnb now, and the place has hot water, so there is no real emergency at all. Elena shook her head in disbelief, her stomach tightening as the pieces started to fit together. Marcus and Chloe had been refusing suitable housing options in their house hunt because it would mean settling for a lesser home. Their inflated expectations set against the competitive real estate market had led them to bounce from one temporary solution to another, all while carefully crafting the narrative they had shared with her. It became evident that the housing issue was one of their own making, a series of choices driven by vanity and an unwillingness to compromise, not a sudden crisis. As the implications sunk in, Elena felt a wave of indignation wash over her. This was not merely a case of poor judgment. It was a blatant manipulation of their shared history and a gross misrepresentation of friendship. Suddenly, the email she had received was stripped of its emotional weight and revealed as a hollow facade. One additional revelation from Sophia struck particularly hard. Chloe had recently posted to a closed neighborhood group reflecting on the dream property opportunity that had slipped away from them, directly coinciding with Marcus's appeal for assistance. This outpouring of vulnerability was not connected to a burst pipe or a health emergency, rather it was the weariness of chasing unattainable aspirations while trying to maintain an image of stability. Elena felt grief welling up, not merely for her own sense of betrayal after months of estrangement, but for Marcus and Chloe. Their choices had been driven by an insatiable desire for validation wrapped in pride. It was painful to witness friends transform into strangers who crafted fabrications out of desperation, but it also solidified her decision to stand firm against their request. Knowing the truth allowed her to untangle herself from the guilt and obligation she had felt with his initial email. The emotional charge shifted from conflict and turmoil to clarity and resolve. How dare they assume that their past goodwill entitled them to her present peace? How could he act as though she should be the conduit for their reckless aspirations? Elena took a deep breath, letting the newfound strength wash through her veins. She was not just a safety net to be used. She was a person with boundaries, worth, and her own dreams to chase. Armed with the truth, she could finally craft a response that reflected her stance on this situation, one punctuated by her feelings of betrayal, but also steeped in clarity. The foundation had shifted beneath her, and she felt a sense of liberation sweeping through her spirit. This was more than an email. It was a moment of fierce self-preservation. It was time to reclaim her narrative, to speak her truth firmly without the sugarcoating of guilt or remorse. Elena gathered her thoughts, ready to send a message that would close this chapter of her life, a necessary act of self-respect and dignity in the face of entitlement and manipulation. Elena sat at her desk, fingers hovering over the keyboard as the sunlight streamed through the window, casting a warm glow in her workspace. She could no longer ignore the storm of emotions that had been swirling within her since Marcus's unexpected message had arrived. The initial shock and confusion had evolved into clarity. Each detail her cousin Sophia had uncovered about Marcus and Chloe's manipulation sat heavily on her chest, a stark reminder of the uncomfortable complexities woven into human relationships. Underneath the newfound resolution, Elena could feel the lingering traces of guilt trying to claw their way in. Perhaps it was a product of their past, memories of late-night conversations, laughter shared over coffee, the warmth of companionship, all now tainted by a sudden realization that any semblance of friendship had long faded into something transactional. But this time Elena was not filled with self-doubt. Instead, the truth fueled her empowerment. Taking a deep breath, she opened a new email draft, her mind racing as she began to type. The words flowed with a particular intensity, each line laced with deep contemplation and a clarion call for boundaries. She carefully articulated her thoughts, ensuring her rejection would be firm yet respectful, a firm stand that sought to honor her own value first. Marcus, she began, knowing that this was the beginning of her liberation. She reminded him of their shared past, but did not shy away from outlining the present reality. How could a once reliable friendship turn into a request cloaked in deceit? I cannot accommodate you and your family in my home, she wrote, given the circumstances under which you have approached me. Elena's fingers did not falter as she continued, recalling all the moments that had shaped her independence. With each keystroke, she highlighted the unapologetic sanctuary her home represented, a workspace that had been nurtured through care and attention, an essence that could not be claimed by someone who viewed it as merely a convenience. Reminding him of his previous dismissive statements about her lifestyle, she wrote, "It seems you have forgotten that my space is not merely a fallback option. It is where I thrive, and I use it to support not only my career but also my well-being." It was cathartic, weaving her thoughts into sentences to reclaim the narrative Marcus had tried to dictate. As she neared the conclusion of her email, a sense of peace washed over her, amplified by the understanding that this moment was not just an end but a beginning. Elena's final words were both a warning and an affirmation. "I wish you and your family the best in finding suitable accommodations, perhaps reconsidering your expectations in the housing market," she urged before hitting send. "And I hope we can own our respective paths without further entanglements." The deed was done. It felt as if she had finally cut the strings that had bound her to decades of unreciprocated kindness. Marcus's imagined resentment no longer resonated with her. She was set free. The weight of obligation and guilt that had settled in her heart began to dissipate, transforming into an invigorating sense of clarity. As the day faded, Elena reflected on the lessons she had learned through this experience. The importance of asserting boundaries, recognizing when kindness was exploited, and finding strength in her independence. Each revelation rekindled her spirit and confirmed her conviction that true connections thrive on mutual respect and understanding. With her heart lighter and her resolve strengthened, Elena prepared for the next chapter of her life. It was one filled with possibilities, new connections, and the confidence to face any challenges that may arise. She had learned that standing up for herself was not just a battle won, it was the foundation upon which she would continue to build her life. Thank you for watching this video. Your support means the world. If you enjoyed the story and found value in Elena's journey of empowerment and boundary setting, please give it a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever faced a similar situation or learned to assert your boundaries? I would love to hear your experiences. Also, if you want more content like this and want to stay connected, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Remember, our stories matter and every lesson learned can inspire others. Until next time, take care and keep embracing your power.